Well, let's start with the obvious with Jonny Athletic, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Do you want to start the segment with the apology, or do you want to save it for the end?
Well, I feel like people always delight in whatever downfall I have and whatever foot I put in my mouth. So why don't we let them wait for a little bit? Let's let them
I'll hold on to it.
kind of just bask in that, and then, yeah.
I'll embargo it for a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, because people stick around through the segment and let me have egg on my face for whatever reason. I should have egg on my face right now, which I have no idea. So.
We'll get to it. Believe me, because I found it. I located it.
Okay.
If you were counseling KOC,
yeah,
would you have suggested that via text? However you could communicate, maybe through the headset. You go, yeah. KOC, I'm as big a J.J. McCarthy fan as you are. I'm not done with him. I'm not giving up on him. I love him, but put him out of his misery. It doesn't matter whether it's Brosmer or it's Pasternaut. Just sit him for the rest of this game. Just let him sit there for a while because this is just not very workable right now. What would your best counsel have been to KOC?
Yeah, Dan, I'm actually, after the game was over, I actually kind of reached to the other side of the equation in that, and said, KOC, this is your guy. This is the guy that you have to figure out if he is viable long-term. If he is not viable long-term, there's nobody better in the league to make that decision than you. And so let's dispense with the idea that you are competing for playoffs, that you are competing for, trying to really, division titles, those types of things. And let's just now try to construct everything around who JJ is and figuring out who JJ is as a quarterback, as a person, and if this is doable. And so there were times, Dan, in the third quarter on Sunday where I was like, man, maybe it is Brosmer time. Maybe it is just time to really just, let this kid clear his head, sit him down, and figure things out. But now I think you're just too far into it now. And it is clear that the rest of the team is not quite up to the task of being perfect around JJ as people really thought that it was going to be at the start of the season. And so now the priorities shift to all in on JJ, figuring that out. Let's worry about how the wins come, later.
I actually think that's probably the better way to go. I think the question's going to be you saw how wild he was. This was not, I don't even think by normal, customary young quarterback standards, where all of them have difficulty processing and occasionally have a little bit of wildness. This was in another dimension, to the point where even Tom Brady, a big Michigan man, I might add, you could tell was a bit unsettled by what he was seeing. So is there a chance that the mistake, we now maybe accept that the mistake was not committing to him long term, but thinking that there was any real chance to thread this needle of doing both, having our cake and eating it too, letting him figure it out and make these kinds of mistakes and living through it and still pretending that we were going to be able to make ourselves viable as a playoff team?
Yeah, I guess here's how I would answer that, Dan, is that I think that two things are true here. And one is that JJ does not appear like at this point in his career, and whether he gets there or not, we don't know yet, but he does not appear right now ready to be the kind of player that can go out and really win you games and be consistent for 4 quarters and surprise people with being ahead of the curve from a developmental standpoint. And so that part is true. But also, I think at the start of the season, there was the theory put forward, and the belief was that, hey, he has Kevin O'Connell as offensive coordinator. He has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson and Aaron Jones. They've beefed up the offensive line. There are so many things around him that make it so he doesn't have to be like Jaden Daniels was last year, or maybe like Drake May is this year in year 2 of really coming on and being an additive playmaker, that they can kind of figure it out around him and be good enough around him to let him learn on the job. And now we're seeing they're not good enough around him either. You have Jordan Addison dropping passes, Adam Thielen dropping passes, TJ Hawkinson dropping passes. You have, leaky offensive line play week to week. Last week it was good, but a lot of times you have that. Kevin O'Connell is still trying to figure out the play calling with the running game and that sort of thing. And so I think that JJ is not as good as anyone hoped he would be, but I don't think the rest of the team around him has been as good as anyone hoped it would be either. So they're kind of failing on multiple fronts here.
Although, he had good protection much of the time yesterday.
Yeah, last week it was good.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, Dan. First, I want to be clear. I am of the mind of that JJ needs time and you want to see it, but he's been bad. There's no question about that. He has been bad. And when you look at kind of the list that he is on from a completion percentage standpoint through 5 games, from a interception standpoint, the guys around him are not the Peyton Mannings who had a rough first year. It's it's really poor quarterbacks. And so the trend lines are not good for JJ McCarthy, but also the Vikings could have helped him a little bit more. If Addison would have caught that pass in the first quarter, it's probably a touchdown. Maybe they win the game. So they have to be perfect around him, and they just haven't been. But JJ McCarthy has not been good by any stretch of the imagination, except for a few late game drives in Chicago and then last week.
Is the dream pretty much gone at this point, or do you still hold out some hope that they could somehow, given the way teams can dramatically shift week to week through stretches, that they can hang into this thing, or do you think it pretty much ended at home yesterday?
It's hard for me to completely give up on a team that went into Detroit and played as well as they did and won like they did. That's hard for me to just say for sure it is over. There's always a chance that things can turn around, but with the way that McCarthy is playing, with some of the other mistakes, last week it was penalties, this week it was drop passes, with some of the other things that are happening around him, but primarily with JJ not showing signs of really clicking in, it's hard for me to look at this and say that there is a turnaround coming. So I am of the mind, as I walked out of the stadium last night, that, kind of as I was saying at the start, but, really doubling down on it, is that I think that right now you shift your focus from, hey, let's do whatever we can to win games and to get back into playoff contention and make this thing real. And instead, let's do everything we possibly have to do to put McCarthy in enough positions so that by the end of the year, you do have a good feel of, hey, he's progressed enough to keep going with this, or, we're better suited looking at what our other options are in the quarterback market.
What did you think of the defense yesterday?
I thought it was fine. I hated the 3rd and long in the fourth quarter that they just couldn't get off the field. It seems like they have a real problem in big spots when it is 3rd and long with giving up chunk plays and yardage and not being able to get off the field late in games. It's happened multiple times this year. I sure wish they could create a turnover once in a blue moon. That is, every week they're losing the turnover battle, and it's not like McCarthy's throwing 5 picks. He threw 2 this week, and that's not great, but your defense should be able to come up with a couple of plays to shift the field back the other way, and they just aren't able to. But other than that, they played really solid against the Bears team that was putting up a lot of points, that looked like they were figuring things out offensively, and they kept the Vikings in the game. They kept that score nice and low, and you should be able to win a home game with the defense playing the way that they did and keep giving up the points that they did. So all in all, I was fine with it. I just wish there could be a few more big plays that this defense could create to shift the momentum and to put their offense in advantageous positions. You look what happened, when Miles Price had the kick return, and then they scored 2 plays later. Like, with a young quarterback, you need your special teams and your defense to make splash plays. And right now, the Vikings defense isn't making nearly enough splash plays to help you win games.
You know, takeaways they often have an element of luck, but it's reached kind of the point of absurdity for this team. I think the Vikings for the season have 9 takeaways, and 5 of them came in one game against Cincinnati. So if I'm doing my math right, that's 4 takeaways in your other 9 games. That tells me you're not around the ball enough, or that can't just be luck. That's an extraordinarily low number that obviously, if this team's going to have any chance to feed and steal some games the rest of the way, is going to have to change.
Yeah, they're not, they're getting around the quarterback, but not consistently enough to speed up passes and make them throw things before they're ready. And then when they are around the quarterback, Caleb Williams is spinning out of it and saving the play. So they're not getting him on the ground, but then they're also the back end. There's no playmakers back there, Dan. Like, Cam Bynum was a playmaker. Like you said, there might have been some luck involved in some of those, and Bynum might have had some other faults, but they really miss a ball hawk. Harrison Smith is not that at this stage of his career. Theo Jackson has not shown the ability to do that on a consistent basis. Murphy and Rodgers had the one great game against Cincinnati and has been just, unimpressive since. And so none of their guys, I think Grenard and Van Ginkel, are capable of doing it. Grenard obviously didn't play against the Bears, but other than that, there just are not any big time, highlight reel playmakers out there. They're just steady guys. And in this league, you have to find ways to make big plays and to shift the energy back on your side, and they have not been able to do that.
Let me ask you a college football question. I don't think you cover a lot of Gopher stuff, but you pay attention to what's going on. They go on the road again Friday night and they were really never in the ball game. I think the final was 42-13. They have lost 4 road games, starting with the Cal game that they also lost by double digits. It wasn't a rout like the other 3 were, but I guess I'm trying to, we get into this game of, well, but if he wins 8 games is a lot of games. And I'm here to tell you that I don't think this is quite like pro football where you say wins or wins or wins. I do think part of how you measure in college football is who you're beating and even who you're competing against. And I got into this on Sunday. My biggest gripe isn't that they can't go on the road and beat Ohio State, or go on the road and beat Iowa, for example, or beat Oregon, although it shouldn't be that difficult to beat Iowa. It's that you got to join the battle. And if you want me to call it a successful season, even if you're sitting there with 8 wins, if they turn around and win the next 2, which then they're both quite winnable, sorry, I can't do that with a straight face. I can't listen to PJ tell me that this is a really good football team. That doesn't define a really good football team. So where are you at? If I take your temperature on the Golden Gophers right now and this season, where are you?
Yeah, I would say I think I'm kind of in line with where you're at in terms of, first of all, I do think PJ Fleck is a good coach, and I think he's the right coach for this program in this market, and in trying to bring some kind of attention and energy to it, and go out and recruit and do the things that he is doing. So in all of those kind of areas, I give PJ Fleck high marks, but I do think it has been disappointing, I would say, is the word that I would use, that they have not been more competitive in some of these games. I did not expect them to go to Oregon on a Friday night and win that game. But you do want to see some progress as the season goes along, and you want to see, some sort of, competitive spirit, some juice that's around the program that you build on. You have a young quarterback who I really like, and I think that it is presumable that over the next couple of years, provided he stays here, that things can start looking up more and more. But, getting kind of manhandled the way that they have in some of these games the bar should be higher than that in terms of week to week competitiveness. And I do think it's an okay team. I don't think you can call them a good team. Maybe they will be good in the next couple of years as Lindsey gets older and more mature. But yeah, it is disappointing to me that, they just go in and get routed by a team like Oregon, and that they, that they're not in more of these games and kind of giving fans something to be a little more excited about.
The early NBA season has featured, obviously, a great deal of success for the defending champions against not, I think, the greatest schedule, but because of the way they've dominated. In fact, I think their margin of victory so far is historic with a couple of the great all-time teams. They're still being saluted. The Denver Nuggets came to town Saturday representing a chance for the Wolves to, I think, beat a team with a winning record for the first time, which ultimately they were not able to do. So give me, before we talk a little bit about the Wolves situation, give me your read on whether there's concern in Wolves land that a team they've kind of done pretty well against, even in the postseason, Denver, is now more of a threat, and now maybe a cut above potentially what the Wolves have fashioned, have turned themselves into the last couple of playoff runs. How do we evaluate Denver?
Yeah, I think that, the Wolves are still confident in the matchup, and that eventually, if they got into a series, that they would feel like they could win. But certainly, like, the feeling of dominance, the feeling like they had a mental edge over the Nuggets is long gone. The Nuggets have vastly improved their bench, which was the big thing, in that playoff series 2 years ago, was that the Wolves in Game 7 just walked down Jokic and Murray and Gordon because they were just run out of gas in that second half of Game 7. They had no energy left because they all had to play 45 minutes a night to try and be competitive in that series. And so when you add Tim Hardaway Jr., when you add Valanciunas, when you add Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown back, like, they're just deeper than they've been in a while. And that should allow the Nuggets to be fresher going into the playoffs this year. And then the other part that is different now from the Nuggets that they have faced the last couple of years is that Jamal Murray is kind of back to his real difference-making ways, and Aaron Gordon suddenly can't miss from three-point range.
Yep.
And those are, two elements. The Wolves just tormented Murray in their matchups, and then Gordon they would just sag off of and dare to shoot threes so they could kind of give more attention to Jokic, and he couldn't make them pay. Well, now he's just shooting at an incredible clip, and looks like that strategy may not work. And so they are very formidable. I think, Dan, that it's OKC number one, it's Denver a clear number two. Then you throw into another tier with Houston, Lakers, maybe Minnesota might be in there eventually if they start playing better against good teams. But Denver is absolutely legit, and this does look like a different animal than the team the Wolves had so much success over.
100% true. So what do we, I guess, in terms of some of this, again, has to do with schedule, but is there any mild concern how this is broken down so far for this team? They've gotten better and a little bit more dominant against teams they're supposed to take care of, which is a previous complaint that we've had about the Wolves, even when they've been good. And to that's positive, I would think. But we got to start, not just competing, but playing against, winning teams, correct?
Yeah, for sure. And part of this is, like, it's still too early in the season, I really think, Dan, to draw major conclusions, because some of those games that they've lost against good teams, like either Ant didn't play in them, or like in the Knicks game, he had just come back from injury and certainly was not himself. Even the Nuggets game on Saturday, like, Ant went 0 for 8 from 3. Like, how often is that going to happen? And so there's a little bit of, like, variance that you kind of want to guard against. But it's been 5 games now where they have played teams with winning records and they've lost every one of them. Sooner or later, they've got to start winning games against good teams. They are very fortunate right now that they're in an incredibly soft part of their schedule. And to their credit, they are doing something they hadn't done in the past, which is beat the bad teams. They're 8-0 against teams with a 500 record or worse. But if you really want to start believing that this is a team that can not only get into the playoffs again, but like then do more damage in the playoffs, and they have talked about making that final step, they are going to have to start playing better against the really good teams, the Denvers, the New Yorks, OKC comes up next week. So there's going to be some tests coming up to see how far they've come. But so far, they have not met those moments. And the more of them they get, then there's going to be more questions about it.
Yeah,
so,
and
it's clear that they have a lot to answer for.
And as you know, Denver was also down 2 starters. So, the Wolves can say, well, Anthony didn't shoot as well as he usually did, but you can talk yourself out of anything on that basis. I mean, Denver played a much better fourth quarter, I thought, than across the board than the Wolves, at a point where the game was quite winnable, or seemed to be winnable, because it was very competitive up until that point. Lastly, the apology. Do you want to get it in now? Do I need to prompt you, or do you want to just volunteer it? I think it'd be more powerful and effective if you volunteer it. But it's up to you. I'll bring it up if you want. It's entirely how you want to handle it. Johnny? Wow. He took offense?
Maybe he didn't want to apologize.
Well, you know who's going to be bitter about that? The hockey community.
Why don't I call him back? Because he's going to want to speak on this.
Well, yeah, he should. All of a sudden, all we do is either win or tie, get a point, and all we do is guard. The team that was routinely giving up 4, 5, and 6 goals a game earlier in the season is giving up 0, 1, or 2 on pretty much a regular basis. So I wanted to give him a chance to acknowledge that, because he tends to be, let's just put it this way, when the Wild are struggling, he's available.
He notices.
He notices and he talks about it. Did you hang up because you did not want to face the music? Johnny?
Distorted there for a second. It was like a Charlie Brown parent or something that was talking to me, so I couldn't really hear it. But I hear you loud and clear now, and so please, let tar and feather me in the town square.
I'm just saying that you were not hesitant early in this season when the Wild were routinely giving up 4, 5, 6, 7 goals to mock the team's defense and the start of the generally speaking, the start that the team had. Now, they're routinely giving up 0, 1, and 2. They're almost Lemaire-like defensively right now, and they're winning more games. They won an OT again last night, and I'm not hearing a peep from you now. Isn't that funny?
It's hilarious because I will tell you this, Dan. Literally, you are the only person that ever asked me my hockey opinion. So it's just funny how that happens. Is the only reason I haven't been able to give them of late is because we haven't talked about it. Nobody else wants to hear me on that. But I will say we can run the tape back. But I do believe the last time that you tried to draw me in
didn't work
to the battle, I think I said that the Wild have this weird thing where every year they play terribly for a little while and then they go on a streak where they never lose for like 30 games and they get right back into it and get everyone excited. And then, maybe they lose in the first round again. We'll see what happens. But this is very much like a hockey season where I don't know, you look at them and they're just like, what in the heck is going on? This is a disaster. And then all of a sudden everything falls into place, puck luck, defensive intensity, all that stuff. And so happy for them. It's really nice to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off, but let's see what happens in April and May.
Okay. All right. It's up to you. I just thought maybe, you'd show us a little bit of grace there, a little bit of humility, but probably too much to ask.
Well, Thanksgiving is next week. Maybe a Monday of next week.
There it is. You give thanks at that point.
Search a little bit more.
That might be the answer. Yeah. Thanks, Johnny.
That might be it.
We'll chat next week.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
That's Jonny Athletic. I forgot to mention to him, this might be a bit disappointing to hardcore basketball purists. I think the Wolves have a game coming up fairly soon, later this month, with the Spurs and
San Antonio Spurs
Wembanyama,
the 30th.
And now the word is calf injury. He's sidelined for several weeks, and they're becoming very anal around the league about calf injuries because of this belief.
You're right.
That it's a precursor to the possibility of blowing out your Achilles. So,
you're right.
You could say, well, it's easier to beat the Spurs without him, but you want to see the best, don't you?
And Wemby has done just some freaky stuff this year.
He has. There's no question about it.
He's on a highlight reel every night.
100%. All right, what's the plan? Bottom of the hour, we'll try to get to a Vikings talking point. We'll prepare for Ben Leber, and then we got Chris Carter at 5 o'clock. Don't go.
Go get them, Glenn. Show us what you can do.
Hockey community is not afraid to slash tires. That seems a bit excessive.
Well, they shouldn't do that.
Doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
You don't want to encourage that kind
No, we do not.
I don't think he meant it. I think he was just, it's kind of the bit. Apparently I'm the only one that ever, it's because you know this. Johnny's very sly about throwing in the hockey community jab.
He did in that last answer. He did in the last answer.
I mean, come on. It's right there for everybody, isn't it? I mean, I'm just saying he can't. I don't think he can conveniently leave that out at this point. All right, let's do this in this segment. Let's get to let's go to the very end of the ball game. Let's do what we like to call the ecstasy and the agony.
1st and 10 from the Bears 15. Addison in motion to the left. Takes the snap. Now a 4-man rush. McCarthy to the end zone. And caught! Yes! Jordan Addison! Just in the nick of time. And we're tied at 16. He's J.J. McCarthy. Well done.
You got to give a ton of credit to the offensive line. The Bears went with a 4-man rush, and McCarthy had all the time in the world to allow Addison as a second really through the zone to get to the end zone, and it was a beautiful back shoulder throw, and Jordan Addison comes up with the biggest catch of the day.
Reichert, snap spot. Will Reichert, yes! How about this? 17-16, Minnesota coming from the depths of nowhere. They've gone from the outhouse to the penthouse. We have 50 seconds to go in the game, and just like week 1, when the Vikings trailed 17-6 into the fourth quarter, they trailed 16-3 to these Bears into the fourth quarter, and now they lead 17-16. The Bears have 3 timeouts.
It's almost cruel.
Reichert kicking it to the east side of U.S. Bank Stadium. Boom. A shorter kick by design. Duvernay from his own 3 heads right. 5, 10, 15, 20. Gets a nice block from Blackwell. Eric Wilson trying to run him down with Will Reichert. And Josh Blackwell make that Devin Duvernay out of bounds deep in Vikings territory. Devin Duvernay with a cold-blooded return of 57 yards. And with 42 seconds to go in the game, Minnesota leads 17-16, and the Bears have the ball at the Vikings 39-yard line.
Yeah, Paul, you talk about disappointing. Duvernay was able to catch this football on the near side and then bend it all the way to the opposite side of the field.
What a block by Blackwell.
And Tyler Batty just wasn't able to get
Stay in your lanes.
Huge mistake by the special teams. Now the Bears started their own 40-yard line. You can't give an inch right here now.
You can't? Oh, you didn't even include the game-winning field goal. I thought that was going to be the that was going to be part of the agony.
No, I just
the ecstasy and the agony. Yeah, well, I mean, it's set up by that play, and as I said, I thought the Bears were being way too presumptuous about their field goal kicker, who has he's accurate, but doesn't have, like, compared to a lot of these newfangled kickers, he does not have a cannon for a leg, I don't think.
Like Will the Thrill?
Like several, even our guy. Yeah, well, that's what you mean, Will the Thrill. There's several Will the Thrills. I forgot that's one of our nicknames for him. So, I'm trying to that made it crueler, right? If the Vikings had just, on that last drive, turned it over on downs rather than scoring, in an odd sort of way, wouldn't it have been less painful? I'm not saying it wouldn't have hurt.
Yeah.
I think it became crueler. It's the old game of, God, it's not. We're done. We're not very good. And they go, well, let's take the victory. What the hell?
And JJ looked good the last drive.
He looked good. So now it's all. I think it actually. It's where the football gods really can be cruel, where they go, oh no, how about a kickoff return that puts them in basically what they need, like 3 runs to get into field goal range?
Yes, and really it wasn't until the third one that they got what they really needed.
That's true.
Like, that was a big sneaky run.
Well, because one of the runs they lost yardage, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it the second down run?
One of the two, might have been both. We bowed up, and then we didn't. And
then they ended up, I thought they ended up, I think it was 4th and 1. Because I thought, well, you better try to get another first down. You better try to get more. Now, I know you're not going to throw there, but I wasn't convinced that the kicker was going to make it. But he did, and the Bears are in first place in the division. It's mind-boggling. And I mentioned earlier the fascinating contrast. Somebody, in fact, wrote about this, but I don't know that they used this particular quote that I noticed on the Bears. I went back and forth between the Vikings post-game here on the fan on iHeart and the Bears post-game to get reaction. And the most illuminating moment for me regarding Ben Johnson and the Bears after that game was somebody said, how would you evaluate your quarterback's play today? This was his answer. Not sure, going to have to look at the film. And I'm thinking, whoa. After you win, and by the way, he wasn't great, but my point is, Ben Johnson, his approach, now again, this is year 2 for Caleb, but year 1 with him has been a lot more challenging in public, where he has not, it's not been a bed of roses, where he's just constantly offering up praise, or, he had some good throws and he had some throws I'm sure he'd like to take back, and we're a work in progress. It was
teachable moments. Got
to look at the tape. I can't say. They won the game. And we'll see. Now, maybe the longer that KOC works with JJ, he'll reach a point where he'll feel comfortable being a little bit more blunt in public, or maybe even think there's an advantage to being a little bit more blunt in public. I'm not sure, because, and I got to tell you one other thing. I get it on the drops, okay? There were a few drops, but I'm not putting those drops close to the same level of McCarthy's wildness. In fact, I would argue that on at least 2 of those throws, they were catchable, but they were not great throws. And in this effort to, I guess, make sure we remember that's not just about him, and boy, he didn't get helped out there. We lose our minds in this stuff. Bears had several drops too, and I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything about that from the Bears head coach. He was about, as I said, as bored with and as disinterested in giving his own quarterback any praise at all. So I found it an interesting approach, and maybe it has something to do with Caleb's personality. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But generally after a victory, right, even if there was a victory not born of great offense, it's not like they finished the game with a great offensive flourish. But that's not the time where usually the coach goes to the tape where he's mad. They lost the game, right? You go, I'm not sure. I'm not in the mood to get very specific. And by the way, Caleb Williams is coming off 2 great finishes where he came back and won the game. So maybe a little bit more tough love in Chicago, and it ain't nothing tough about the love here right now. Right now, it's all excuses and fundamentals, and we're hanging in, and he's doing everything he can. The only guy, the quarterback whisperer who was tougher on him on the broadcast was Tom Brady. Brady basically said, look, I get what all other you guys are saying about this, but you're a professional player. This is your second year, even if you didn't play all that much last year. You come from a very good program. Yeah, there's going to be a lot expected of you from the beginning. It can't just be, well, I'm going to need extra time to figure this whole thing out. We'll see how it goes. Let's break, come back, get Nacho's view on what took place, whether he agrees with me that I had no problem with not kicking the ball through the end zone, which I know a lot of people now do. Funny after the fact. We'll get into that. We'll get his Hot Splash player of the game, a quickie version of Leber, because we've got Chris Carter coming up at 5 as well. A quick hit, a little shorter than usual with Nacho because we've got Chris Carter at the top of the hour. Guardsy reminded me that he was at the game yesterday. Nacho with us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline, and of course his appearance, as usual, brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Perhaps we get started with your Hop Splash player of the game, and then we can get into a couple other areas quickly. But let's sort of change the usual routine we have here. Who are you nominating or citing this week?
Well, first of all, good to be with you, and tell Chris Carter I said hello.
We'll do so.
Always a stud. And let's see, the Hop Splash player of the game is not just the guy that I interviewed after the game. I'm not just picking him just because it's convenient. When I watched back the film, I noticed what he was doing during the game, and I'm like, okay, I just need to confirm that he actually played solidly, not just for a couple plays, but throughout. But our right guard, Will Fries, he's a special player, man. He has been out there just quietly grinding, and I thought he played a really solid game. And you watch the things that they ask him to do, not just blocking the guys in front or combo blocking and getting to the second level. I mean, of all the guys that pull on our offensive line, he probably pulls the most. So they're using him in that capacity as well. So it kind of just shows his athleticism, his toughness when he's blocking people. And if you watch the way he finishes, he just brings an attitude every single snap. So really appreciate what he's doing. So he's my Hop Splash player of the game.
Outstanding. One of the debate points that then this is what makes the game of professional football the most popular by far is everybody can offer up an opinion on a play call or on a decision or whatever the case may be. And the big one after yesterday was the decision to not try to kick out of the end zone once the Vikings got that late lead. Again, I think some of that is because of what ended up happening. But I'm curious to get your view, and I don't know if you've spoken about this yet, but I had no problem kicking to the 2. I know he's a great return guy, but given that the Bears only needed 3, had I think 3 timeouts left, I don't want to concede the 35-yard line in a situation where 3 points means I lose the game. I think it was the right call. I obviously it ended up being a worst case scenario. Where were you on whether they should have just kicked it and accepted the idea that the Bears start at the 35?
I'm with you on that one. I thought about it for a brief moment, but I'm like, we got a pretty good kick cover team, and I don't know, don't you want to make them earn it? Earn every yard, we're going to put our best guys against your best special teams guys, and let's see who wins. Now, it did blow up in our face. We know that. But, when the ball's kicked, I thought that was the right decision and the right call. And, if we, play it out and we pin them back on, let's just say the 20-yard line, the old touchback spot, it's 15 more yards that,
exactly.
Who knows? That could have been the difference in the game. So I like the idea just to kick it off and let him return it.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. So a lot of people, and I think you may have talked some about this, they're noting the way McCarthy finished on that last drive, and they're going with, maybe we go more no huddle. Maybe when there's less, that in that situation, there's less to think about, and he can just sort of fling the ball. Is that oversimplifying things? Is there something to it? Is there anything that the Vikings and KOC can learn to try to incorporate that might give him a better chance to settle down in other parts of the game, or is it just apples and oranges?
I wish it were that simple. I definitely think in those 2-minute drills, you're doing less check with me's at the line.
Right. Yep.
You are just kind of calling the play, and whatever happens. And, the center's going to make their call, and they're going to get right. But a lot of times you don't have time to really diagnose, like, is this guy tipping a blitz or are they tipping a coverage? You just have to play it out. So I do think, you can maybe take a little bit of that simplification, but it's just not that easy. And the thing is, the other part of it is in 2-minute drill, you're doing less play action.
Yeah,
you're not turning your back to the defense. Yeah. You're not trying to fool them. It's like, okay, we're just playing 7-on-7 out here. And I don't think that that's sustainable. I mean, we've seen this a lot of times with different quarterbacks in different situations where like, wait, well, why can't we just play 2-minute all the time?
Yes.
Because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It's going to catch up to you. You got to find more balance. And we talk about it all the time. I mean, even leading up to this game, like, man, can we run the football a little bit more? And we got more of a commitment to the run. And we saw that the offense, I think, functions better like that. You got more pass protection in those situations. If you're just throwing the ball willy-nilly 55 times a game and 7-on-7, you're going to get beat. You're going to get picked off, and you're going to get sacked a whole bunch.
So he's not the first young quarterback to be erratic, but even by erratic standards, I mean, the wildness high, I think, is kind of symbolized by on the JJ play, was pretty alarming, I think, and pretty unusual even by young quarterback standards. Do you have any theories on what happens? Is it you want to say, well, sometimes he gets sped up. I don't know. Is it mechanics? Is it the basic stuff that the head coach keeps talking about? Is it in his head where no matter what he says publicly about how, hey, I'm fine, I take responsibility, but I'm in, and he's shaking hands on the sideline. We'll get him next time, and he sounds like he's not letting anything get to him, that there's a chance that some of this stuff is getting to him?
It might. I mean, I wish I had more insight on what really goes into throwing mechanics. My guess, my just like very novice guess, is that he's just not transferring his weight, more forward. Like you're seeing, the ball that he sailed early in the game. Justin's making an outcut towards their sideline, and he just airmails it, right? And there wasn't people, and there weren't players in front of him. The pocket wasn't collapsing. In those clean situations, it's like, well, what really happened there? And it just seems like he's not transferring all of that weight from his back foot to his front foot. It looks like he is, but there must be something mechanically going on where the release point is coming up, behind the midpoint or something. I don't know. That's my best guess, because when you see, he had another play similar to Justin Jefferson, but it was more of an in cut. And it was early in the game. It might have been the second drive of the game where he stepped up in the pocket and where he was literally moving forward. Like his body weight is moving forward, and then he delivers a dart right on his numbers. And it's like, well, that's the exaggeratory look of the weight transfer going forward, because he's actually moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's in a static position, he's setting his feet and he's turning his hips. But is he really turning his hips and transferring the weight from the back foot to the front foot? I don't know. If that's not even it, that's not it. But I look at those two different plays, and I'm like, well, the difference is the weight's going forward on the one where he's escaping and climbing the pocket, and that's why it looks so good. And those static throws get a little erratic because he's not transferring that weight.
Last question for you today, and I appreciate your indulgence since we have Chris a little earlier than I had originally anticipated. Are you of the mind, I think you've been all along, of the guy, one of the guys who said, you got to play him. I mean, this is it. This is the guy you've decided. You got to find out about him. You got to let him play through stuff. Is there any hesitation in that the danger of, if he continues to have these sorts of highs and lows and quarterback rankings where you go, man, I don't want to get traumatized mentally here, that it might be better to have him sit for a while? Or do you say, nope, full speed ahead, training wheels have to stay off? Chances are the season is pretty close to, being done in terms of a playoff race if they lose the next week or two. And you just got to keep throwing him out there and give him every minute you can.
Yeah, this is a tough love situation for me. And unfortunately, the offense is going to at times suffer from it. Your star player is going to be frustrated at times. But my guess is they all understand it. This is just what it looks like to kind of go through these rough patches. So my advice is you ride with him all the way through the season. If that means that you are non-competitive in some games, does that mean that the defense is going to be set up on a short field because of turnovers and interceptions? Yes, because when he goes back and he watches the film and they get to learn his personality and what he does really well and what he can handle when they go in the off season, that's all such valuable information to know, to chew on, to dissect, and to motivate. And that's what you want out of a young player is like, okay, I have these 4 or 5 things that I have to work on this off season. And that's when you make the biggest strides. So he's going to make it every player, whether you're a bust of a first round pick or not, you make the biggest strides from year 1 to year 2. And I already like so much of what I see that I'm already excited to see what he can look like in the 2026 version.
Thanks for the time, as always. We'll chat next week. Thanks, Ben.
All right, sounds good. See ya.
Nacho Leber, Ben Leber helping us out, and we're cutting it a little short because Chris Carter is scheduled to join us next. If you have questions for him, hit the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line 64686. He was in attendance, as Guardsy reminds me, very prominently in attendance yesterday's game. We'll get his reaction, and, as always with Chris, get into a couple of other issues as well. Stay tuned.